Why would the president, who was spied on illegally by the intelligence and law enforcement agencies of this country back in 2015, 2016, 2017, why would he put so much of his authority behind more warrantless spying on Americans?
That's hard for me to understand. Some people think it's because he wants that ability to, as long as he's president, to use his own FBI and DOJ to have these same tools. But then that begs the question, why would the Democrats, the Uni-Party, right, if you will, why would they want to give President Trump this authority? You would think they might agree to a 3-year hiatus on spying without warrants, right? But no, they don't want any lapse in the program, and the president doesn't want any lapse in the program.
What's up, guys? Welcome to my channel. We are the Dissident Debrief, and today we're going to be reacting to Tucker Carlson and Thomas Massie exposing the great betrayal of the American public by the Uni-Party, the establishment, and their continuation of the FISA warrant, Section 702, which allows them to illegally spy on Americans. So let's get into it.
But if Democrats are so afraid of Trump, if he's really Hitler, he's this authoritarian, crazy person who's going to eliminate civil liberties, why would Democrats be giving that guy the power to spy without a warrant on American citizens?
Exactly. You've rephrased it better than I said it.
I think the reason why the Democrats are not super concerned about Trump having the power, I don't think that they believe he will do it. I think a lot of the Hitler talk is for show. Like, they definitely do not like him, but I don't think I think that they believe that he won't go as far as they are willing to. And then when it comes to Trump, maybe he does want that power. But ultimately, I think that the Republicans and Democrats are largely on the same team in the spying because they can use it when they want. During the Trump administration, a lot of the Republicans kind of like built their like political career on why FISA is bad, and then as soon as they have the power, they don't do anything to get rid of this unconstitutional, illegal law or bill or practice.
In fact, I found myself in a really weird position last week on the floor of the House on flyout day. Most people had already booked their planes to leave before this debate was going to happen. The House of Representatives sent the Senate a deal to reauthorize FISA if the Senate would ban central bank digital currency. Now, I would ban central bank digital currency and not reauthorize FISA, right? But some of the Freedom Caucus decided that was an okay trade, to trade part of the Fourth Amendment for another part of the Fourth Amendment. And I am terrified of central bank digital currency. It's an on-off switch for your participation in society, right?
Of course.
And that is super troubling that the Freedom Caucus felt that that would be a worthwhile trade, central bank digital currency for FISA. And especially since for so long the Freedom Caucus has positioned themselves like they're probably the most freedom-oriented political party or caucus within the Republicans, and for them to cave on this is really pretty troubling.
They starve you to death if you disobey.
Yeah, they won't let you put gas in the tank. You won't be able to travel. They'll just, they can control everything if they can control the currency. It's bad enough. But we sent that deal to the Senate. I didn't vote for that deal, but some people did. It went to the Senate, and the Senate laughed at that deal, threw it in the trash, and sent a clean reauthorization of FISA back to the House with the 45-day expiration. And everybody but me suggested we should just let that pass by unanimous consent and folks could get on their airplanes and go home. And I said, I don't think so. Like, an infringement of the Constitution for 45 days is still an infringement of the Constitution. And by the way, we've known about this problem for as long as I've been in Congress. I've been offering and passing amendments to defund this part of the FISA program. It's not something new. It's like a florist being surprised by Valentine's Day. We knew this date was coming. And so I stood up and I objected. And they said, okay, well, now we got to have a debate over this bill. And Jim Jordan got 20 minutes and Jamie Raskin got 20 minutes as the chair and the ranking member of the Committee of Jurisdiction, the Judiciary Committee. And at that point, I stood up and told the speaker that I want 20 minutes in actual opposition to the bill.
Wait, I'm confused. You have one of the most liberal Democrats in the House, Jamie Raskin of Maryland. You have one of the most conservative Republicans in the House, Jim Jordan of Ohio. But they're on the same side on spying on Americans?
For at least 45 days, they're on the same side.
Well, how?
Isn't that strange that Jim Jordan and Jamie Raskin are on the same side on this one? I think when it comes to Jim Jordan, like, it's definitely pretty troubling that he'd sign off on this 45-day extension. He has been a vocal critic, and he does claim that it should be reformed. And I think largely Jim Jordan, that if I were to speculate, I think Jim Jordan doesn't want to cross Trump. Perhaps Jim Jordan has more political aspirations in his career. He doesn't want to cross Trump, and he's kind of like protecting himself for future campaigns instead of standing on principle on this thing.
Could Jim Jordan, this ferociously conservative freedom guy, be in favor of spying on Americans without a warrant?
Well, the president told him to.
Yeah, but that's like a core. That's a core
It's always
issue
been a core issue of his, and in the debate.
of his specifically.
Correct. It was a condition of being on the Judiciary Committee when I joined. Like, you had to believe that we needed warrants on FISA, or you couldn't be on the Judiciary Committee that he chaired. That was like the first interview question when you applied for Judiciary
That the
Committee.
Constitution's still real.
Right. And particularly with FISA, 702, this particular program. And he battled last Congress ferociously to get warrants.
So just like what they were saying, how Jim Jordan was, like, he built his career on being against FISA, and then to have this abrupt change, it makes me think that Jim Jordan is making a strategical move for future political aspirations and doesn't want to cross Trump. Unfortunately, he's choosing his future career over principles for America.
And it came down to a tie vote where Mike Johnson was the deciding vote. And I don't know why, again, because Biden was president, but enough Republicans voted to let Biden have the power to spy on Americans without a warrant.
Because a lot of that information, that intelligence that's spying on Americans goes directly to Israel, like fact. So,
Absolutely.
Right. So that's what this is really about, is do we allow a foreign country to spy? Does our government make it easier for a foreign country to spy on Americans? It's like the ultimate betrayal.
Another fact, when X decided to show you where accounts were based, where they were set up and where they were operated from, the DHS account showed Israel, that it was set up. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security's X account was set up using an IP address from Israel, using an Android app purchased in Israel.
But it was a glitch. There are always glitches. I remember that day. That was really funny and troubling day. Everyone's like, oh, we knew it. But it's always a glitch. The glitches always seem to go in one particular way.
It doesn't trouble people. Like, there should be an investigation over why, when the DHS set up its Twitter account, it was set up in Israel. Now, they claim, if you ask Grok about this, he'll walk around the bush with you.
Oh, of course.
And say that, well, there were some glitches back in the old day and there were some contractors involved and you can never get to the bottom of it. So, but back to the last week, I was able to claim.
So, but just to be clear, Jordan was on the same side as Jamie Raskin.
Correct. For the clean 45-day extension.
Did you feel like your head was spinning as you watched this?
Yes, but I've been here before where it's me versus the Uni-Party. And by the way, when they call me an obstructionist, you can put this in the column of things that I try to obstruct, like violations of your Fourth Amendment. So the speaker said, okay, each side gets 20 minutes. And I rose up and I said, well, in fact, each side is for this. So this is no kind of debate. Like, I want my 20 minutes.
It's like the perfect metaphor. It's like a fake debate where both sides agree.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it is in the House rules, they had to give me 20 minutes. And so then it was going to be me with 20 minutes and Jim Jordan with 20 minutes. Ironically, a guy that I like who has been leading the charge to get warrants in FISA, but in this situation was for reauthorizing a program for 45 days without warrants. And at that moment, one of the staffers came over to me. This is where it's getting surreal, and says Jim Jordan would like to give half of his time to Jamie Raskin.
This is the last scene in Animal Farm where the farmers and the pigs are like in it together.
And they said, would you object? And I said, no, what the hell? Let them both have time. So I had 20 minutes and Jim had 10 and Jamie Raskin had 10. And then to their credit, Keith Self from Texas, Chip Roy from Texas, and Warren Davidson from Ohio joined me in this debate. Some other people in spirit came and sat down to offer their moral support. They didn't need time to debate. And we had a good debate on this issue. Look, the FBI has used this program to basically run their dating app prospects through the database to see what they can find about them before they swipe right or swipe left.
What?
Yeah, that's the kind of abuse that's gone on. They've used it on Congress. They've used it on the president. They've used it on political parties. And people say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, why do you care if the government spies on you?
That's always the reason that they give. If you're not doing anything wrong, then what do you have to worry about? And honestly, this whole conversation is really good. I highly recommend that you go and watch the full podcast. What this interview really highlights is just how surreal it is that a leading Republican like Jim Jordan, usually a staunch opponent of federal overreach, immediately found himself on the same side as a horrible Democrat like Jamie Raskin. And it really is kind of like the last scene of Animal Farm where you have the pigs and the humans discussing how they're going to run the farm, essentially. And it really shows how both sides, they fight on TV, they ferociously debate, but some of that is for show. They're all friends behind the scenes. Yeah, they might disagree on social policy or around the edges, but on the core things like war and surveillance, it seems like they're all in unison. And well, with that, thank you guys. I'll catch you in the next one.